Oh, okay. There we go. All right. Hello. Welcome. It is April the 10th today, and it's good to be together again. I have a talk prepared for you this morning that I think will be relevant for most every human being. I think as human beings, especially human beings that are attracted to meditation, we have this propensity to think things through, to try and get it right, and to try and figure things out, to try and have it all figured out. And there's a real beautiful motivation underneath all of that. But I think also in that kind of striving, we cause ourselves a lot of grief and suffering. So one of the most important things that I really want to bring forward through Ahimsa April is that, we don't have to get it right all the time, and we really don't have to have it all figured out. Our hearts, if you really only come away from Ahimsa April with these remembering these three things, is that our hearts are open, tender, and responsive. And open means that they aren't limited by our conceptual ideas about our lives. And one of the big hang-ups that we have is that, we are trying to get it right or present ourselves as right or having it all figured out. And that's a conceptual idea that we carry around. And our open heart isn't limited by that conceptual idea. Tender means that our hearts have the capacity to know in an intuitive way what needs to happen. And responsive means that they can take that intuitive guidance and bring it into the world without any doubt and reservation. So, as I say, one of the most deeply held beliefs that we have about our lives is that we have to do it right, and that we have to be perfect, and that we have to have it all figured out. And this is a form of violence that I see being played out in my own life. And it's a demand that I see others place on themselves. And it's one in particular that I think in an online forum where you have a chance to present yourself and edit what you present and choose how you're going to present yourself, that it can be a little bit more amped up. It's almost like a place where you get to choose the persona that you're presenting. So, not only is this not realistic to present in our online forum, you could present yourself in this way, but in life, when you're trying to do this to do life right or to have it all figured out, it's just not realistic. You're going to cause yourself a lot of suffering trying to do that, because it's not going to work out. And our meditation teaching, that your heart is open and tender, it knows intuitively what needs to happen, and you can go into the world without doubt or reservation. It teaches us that it's unnecessary to have it all figured out and to be right about everything. So I'm just going to ask you to take a moment right now to sit with a straight spine, close your eyes, lengthen up through the back of your head, and take a deep breath in through your nose. Let it fall out of your mouth. Feel the earth underneath you. Feel your connection with the earth. And then Just allow yourself to be in your body, to rest in your body. Stay long through the back of your neck. Let your chin tuck slightly so that you're really connected with your body. And then let your attention rest slightly, just gently on your breath. And so now, from this place of being connected with the earth underneath you, being connected with your breath and fully in your body, take a moment now and reflect on just how often you are rehearsing your life. All the ways that you plan it out, you play it out, you're working it out. All the ways you go through the possible scenarios, planning and scheming the best possible outcome for you. And maybe not all the ways, it just maybe one of the most recent ways. Or something that feels charged or recent. And then let that experience be present for you through the rest of the talk so that you have your own experience in the forefront of your listening. And you can either continue to listen to the rest of the talk with your eyes closed, or you can open your eyes. But with this awareness of the ways that there's this kind of rehearsing and the scheming and the planning that happens in your own life, just noticing how that feels in your body too, that this is really a kind of violence that we inflict on ourselves. It's a lack of trust in our own ability to be fully with our experiences as they arise, and to have the capacity to know what needs to happen, and to know that we'll be able to act without doubt and reservation. So we talk to ourselves nonstop, recalling what has happened, planning what needs to be done, evaluating what needs to be done, preparing for how we're going to interact with others. And there's this really great analogy that it's like being caught in the waiting room of your life. So instead of actually living your life, you're sort of stuck in this limbo place, this waiting room. You're caught in an in-between place. So that you're not fully engaging in any experience, but you're sort of sitting on the sidelines and torturing yourself, thinking about executing the perfect life, rather than trusting yourself to live it. So while you're sitting in your waiting room, planning and preparing, evaluating and judging, your life is unfolding in its own delightful and terrifying ways. So you can spend your whole life in the waiting room trying to figure it all out. But I'm here to tell you, and other teachers will tell you, that you're never going to figure it all out. Life is going to unfold with or without your full participation. And at some point, we have to trust the openness and the tenderness and the responsiveness of our heart. And we have to trust that our heart is not limited by our kind of egoic, neurotic need to have it all figured out. We have to trust that our heart does have the capacity to know how to respond and how to act without doubt and reservation. And we don't have to get it all right. It's not about being perfect. So at some point, we can have the courage to leave this waiting room, to leave this limbo space, because we can't author our experience. It is going to unfold from moment to moment in all its power, in all its messiness, in all its grandeur, and in all its boredom. You know, we can't plan a super exciting life 24/7. Sometimes it's going to be quite boring. And reality doesn't stop because we're sitting in the waiting room rehearsing our lives. Experiencing the unfolding of our lives from moment to moment is messy and it's uncertain. And when we leave this kind of cozy rehearsal space of the waiting room, we're entering into the real deal. We're entering into the unknown. We're entering into the groundless ground. And rather than the false sense of having it all figured out, each moment arises as vivid and fluid, and things are constantly changing. What we thought was going to be solid and predictable is constantly changing. Nothing is guaranteed. So we have this tendency to try to protect ourselves from life's instability by staying in the safety of the rehearsal space of the waiting room. But we can really trust this tenderness of our heart, the openness of our heart, the responsiveness of our heart. And I dare you, I really dare you to be courageous enough to let go of the limiting belief that you can do it right, or that you can somehow get it all together, and leap into the unknown, leap into the uncertainty, because that is where your heart is going to meet you, and that is where your heart is going to guide you. So that is what I wanted to talk about this morning. And I turn the floor over to you now so that you can respond to this in any way that feels appropriate. Let us know where you're connecting from and what your intention for practice is today.
Currently, I'm going over the task of writing an email, and it's an important email. I need lots of people to read it and see my true self in it. And I am going through it's not perfect. Is it really me? How many times do I have to edit it? All this kind of thing. And you're right, I'm projecting what might happen if. And when someone reads it, they'll think that. And it's kind of swirling in my mind. And I have to keep putting it down and saying, come back tomorrow. And then at some point, I've got to press the go button. And I just keep projecting more and more forward. Whereas at the moment, I am just a beginner writing an email. Talking about it like this seems ridiculous. So that's my waiting room at the moment. And yeah, it's funny because over this weekend I've actually been thinking that I kind of started getting it under control. I had a chat with my sister last week, and I let everything out. And I said, I'm scared of this thing because of that. And she totally heard me, she listened to me, and then I felt better. And it was needing to let it out and recognize it and actually put it out there, I think, that made it actually seem real and brought me back to the moment, knowing that I can't do anything about what might happen. I can only do something about what is now. And that was it was asking for support because I needed support. And it was self-care in that way. Because I can't self-care everything myself. So in this respect, I probably need to talk to Nick about the email and say, it's causing me this. I just need to let that go and hear it come out. And yeah, notice the moment is all right. We've actually put something in our day very regularly now for quite a long time, and it's actually even happening more, and we're in the moment more. We're watching on TV every day a comedy. We make ourselves sit there for half an hour because we both enjoy it and we laugh together. We really, really laugh. We found a few things we're switching between them, and that is us enjoying the moment, and we remember the moment because we've laughed so much. I really find that helpful for self-care as well, because I can forget and I can let everything else go and just be there enjoying that with him. So I do want to be in the moment when I'm meditating this afternoon. I think that's very important. Again, I can't predict it, but I really have that intention and that desire to really follow my moment this afternoon.
Thanks, Hannah.
I'm Paige. I've got some, I don't know, big ones and small ones. I'm in the beginning of a new relationship, and I'm, not only trying to be who I want to be in the relationship, but, manage it. Decide what I want of it and from it, and make it be the thing that I want it to be. And in addition, got some really huge financial decisions coming up. And honestly, I'm terrified and trying to do exactly what you're saying in both of those. And what I typically do is my waiting room, which I love the analogy, very often when it's not necessarily that I go to ground in normal struggles, but when things get really hard, really difficult, I censor myself intensely. One of my goals is to do that less and or not at all in our community, because I don't see the point. Because what I've seen over and over again is when I've gone to ground with my own pain and the fact that I'm imperfect and I have these struggles or whatever, a week, a month, 6 months later, I see how if I had engaged, I would have been part of a discussion, part of a rich experience. But this trusting my heart business is, it's new for me and scary. Just really, really, it's scary as hell. It just is. So I'm glad I'm here. It's work.
Hi, I'm Petra from North Vancouver, Canada. I've been taking on some art therapy in the last little while, and it's great when I engage, but it's tough because my career is built a lot off of graphic design, which is art. Very, very controlled problem-solving art. So over the years, been about 20 years doing that, and over the years, it's kind of beaten the self-expression out of me. And I used to be very, very, very creative and self-expressive, and not so much anymore for a variety of reasons, but that's a big one. So I'm taking some time away from graphics. And I bought a bunch of art supplies, and I'm doing an online art therapy kind of course where you're expressing yourself with the paint. And I've never been too much into paint, so it's good. However, I'm finding myself in that waiting room quite frequently because design is a lot in the waiting room, a lot of planning and very little art. And this painting is the opposite. You don't plan, you just show up and you make something and see what happens, and which is extremely good. But that's and I couldn't even say but, it's very good practice, and I'm using it as the same way as I'm doing the yoga, where it's a practice, not a result. So it's the process and a practice. So I'm trying to do it most days and just get that blank paper. I get the anxiety going towards it because there is no planning and I feel like there's something wrong. I know there's not anything wrong. I just feel something wrong. So I'm going through that in the next while, seeing if that practice will open things up for me. And definitely that waiting room comes in a lot, and I try and just sort of, I'm in the waiting room again. Okay, so let's move out back to the paper and see what happens. So that's what's going on.
Yeah, that blank page is a really good description of the groundless ground. Mm-hmm. And process oriented too. Very good description of stepping into the unknown and the uncertainty, right, and the messiness of life, right, where you absolutely can't determine every possible outcome and your response to it, and it's just impossible. It's crazy making. Okay, does anybody else want to check in before we get started?
Sometimes I'm in the waiting room instead of being present in the moment. Like sometimes, and I think I'm not the only one who does this, but sometimes like when you're talking with someone and you're in a conversation, instead of really paying attention, you're planning what you're going to say. And instead of just really being there and listening to them, so I think that's one time where I could start being like in the waiting room, waiting for my turn to talk or something like that, and be more present in the moment and engaged in the conversation instead of. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I think that's a really great place to be with this concept. Because the worst thing that happens is you become a better listener, which is actually a really good thing. Right? So what at the end of it if you have no idea what to say? Everybody just thinks, wow, Jenny's such a great listener.
I can remember times when I've planned this amazing thing to say, and this other person has gone on talking for so long that it's not relevant anymore.
That happens a lot. Yeah, which really proves the point of how useless the planning is in reality, right?
Yeah.
What a useless activity it is. Because we can't actually know what's going to happen and what's going to arise from moment to moment. And so we can actually trust ourselves to show up in the moment and to be able to trust the unfolding of the moment and to take care of ourselves and to take care of others in the moment as well. You know, that we can trust that.
Sometimes I find myself like when others are speaking to me and you know it's not really resonating with the like they're resonating with the waiting room and I'm trying to resonate with my body, and so I'm like paying so much attention to what's going on in my body that I don't know how to respond. So I end up saying nothing, and then it's just like I get this feeling they think I'm crazy because I don't say anything. But it's also I just don't, you know, I don't want to offend or cause like a judging reaction or I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, isn't it? When there's a conversation happening and it happens, doesn't it? Where it's not, there's no resonance, but you're present for it.
My awareness is there.
That's
way.
right. It's all happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I find sometimes those ones can go on for a really long time.
Yeah. Continuous opening into my body and connecting with earth.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about those times.
It's strange, isn't it? Because sometimes the body is more interesting. Well, my heart's beating. Let me hear it. Yeah, there's nothing else going on. It feels like nothing else is happening. Yeah.
Well, it's curious though, right? Because is there really nothing going on?
No.
Someone is saying something, but it's the listening, isn't it? And if the boredom comes up, then it's returning to the listening that becomes the practice.
And also the question is, why have we checked out?
I have noticed sometimes that it's fear. Maybe what they're talking about resonates so strongly that I'm scared of it, so I don't really want to connect that much. I kind of actually notice that I'm tensing, and I have to actually relax, just let it all go, and then say, okay, well, now I can start listening again because it was actually quite interesting. But don't be scared of it, they're just talking. I have noticed that in the past, definitely.
Yeah, I noticed that my checking out is usually when some form of my agenda or my ego structure is very much being rattled. This is not resonating with my version of reality. You are not fitting into my box and my agenda. Shoot. I can sit here and pretend to be a good listener now, but I'm gone. And so that's what's really happening. And my teacher, and then I realized that I have right now in the course I'm taking, we have a meditation, and we have groups, and then we have a meditation instructor within our group. And my meditation instructor once spoke about the way she checked it one time when somebody was angry with her, and all she could find herself doing was staring at the person's eyebrows. I thought I was like, wow. But then at the same time, it's like we all have that version, right, of staring at the person's eyebrows. When we've checked out for whatever reason, because it's gotten too, it's pushed up against whatever sense of self has become too dangerous for us, right? Whatever sense of self, whatever sense of our agenda. And so then, we're staring at their eyebrows, or we're checking out. And so you guys will never forget that now, right? It's a really good analogy. I mean, it was her experience, but we all have some version of staring at the eyebrows, I think. But I think what's really important there is to look at what's happened in that moment. It's like what's happened the moment before the willingness to be present has been disrupted. Right? Because in relation to this talk, it's like, well, the way I've rehearsed this isn't going the way I rehearsed this. So, okay, you're not dancing the way I want to dance. So, well, I'm just not going to dance with you then. And that's really what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too.
So are we learning how to dance with the energy emanating from them, or are we just continually focusing on our energy and then I don't know.
I think it's both, right? I think that we have to be listening to our own body's energy and the others, right? It's not like we become a complete doormat because we're doing this, right? It's like, okay, everybody walk all over me now, right? So I think that we're receiving important cues from our body all the time, and we're going to trust that, right? The whole thing is that our body is open, our hearts, our bodies are open, tender, and responsive, right? And we can trust intuitively what our bodies are telling us, right? Our bodies are telling us, hey, you need to walk right now. Then you need to walk right now, right? This is not a safe place. This is not a safe relationship. This is not a safe environment, right? You don't have to be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
We're not saying that.
And if the two dances can't work in harmony, then it is a time to check out. Yeah.
One of the things that my dad says, and he's one of my main teachers and a really wise man, has a lifetime of working to show up and be present and take responsibility for his own stuff, etc. This isn't my personal style, but he'll be really honest with things. Whether it's a family member who really likes to discuss some esoteric stuff that my dad has, this much interest in, but the family member can go on forever. My dad will say, that's been really interesting, but I'm done. I'm done being interested in that now. And I really, he'll honor the person. I really thank you. Now, not my style, as I said. But he really strives to kind of, as you said, Melissa, walk away, speak his truth, take responsibility in that way, with a great deal of integrity and as much honesty as is reasonable in the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell everybody, wow, I went to sleep 5 minutes ago, just realized it, I'm dozing out now. You can't, that's not always appropriate, but his willingness to own those feelings and to be honest in the moment, hearing and integrity is, I don't know, it's something I strive for.
And I think from the perspective of this talk, right, we can't control our lives. There are like right now what's happening is that we're trying to rehearse and figure out every single outcome, and right, you can't do that. And in our lives, we are going to be in relationship with people, and in certain circumstances, you're going to have to be in relationship with people that you don't want to be in relationship with, right? Most of us have to work for a living, right? And you don't get to choose the people that you work with for the most part, right? You don't get to choose who you're in direct contact with as far as working relationships are. You have to work those relationships out for the most part, right? So there are certain things where there is less wiggle room, right? And you cannot plan it all out. You are going to have to answer to certain people. You are going to have to work with certain people. Your parents are going to be your parents for your whole life. Your children are going to be your children for your whole life, right? Your siblings are going to be your siblings for your whole life. There are certain relationships that you are going to be in. And they're not really things that you can step out of.
Yeah, and Melissa, I'll add to that I think it's those loved ones, the people that we're closest to, they're the ones that we have the hardest time being present with, because it can be so emotionally painful. But at the same time, they're the ones that we really have to be emotionally present for. Having the healthy boundaries for sure, but at the same time, they're the ones that are always going to get to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They know the buttons for sure, right?
Yeah. And
you can, from the perspective of the talk, right? You can plan it all out and try and have it all sorted and try and be the best person you could possibly be. But oh man, there's the chaos right there for you. They'll throw chaos right into your face every single time. And you have to be able to trust yourself in those situations. That is exactly, this is why we practice, right? So that we can, when we sit down, when we come to practice, we know that we can handle whatever comes up. But we can't control whatever comes up. We can't, we can't sit in that waiting room trying to rehearse it. And this person's going to say this, and this person's going to say that, and then I'm going to be able to be this way, and it's all going to be perfect. This is never going to be all figured out that way. Things have a way of unfolding the way they unfold. No matter how you try to show up as the perfect person, it doesn't work that way.
I was thinking that too, because when you mentioned work, that was something that I thought about, where I used to have to, when I did work and stay at home now, but that was one place where I was like almost a different type of person, and I would be at home and I didn't feel comfortable just being who I was there in the work environment. I had to be somebody else and present myself a whole different way than I normally would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it depends on the work environment too, because it's not always possible to show up, and that it depends on the culture of the work as well, whether that's a possibility. It sounds like it might have been a difficult place to show up in that way. But I'm also willing to bet that that these practices and these teachings would shift your perspective of it somewhat in the way that you could enter the space too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Shall we go to practice? Okay. So Susan, have you done any of the recorded practices with us before on these? Okay, so we're going to start lying down then. And I will mute you all. You're going to lie down on the earth, connect with the earth underneath you. You feel the support of the earth. Your knees are bent, your feet are flat on the ground. Feel your elbows heavy on the ground, your hands are on your belly. And feeling your 2 feet, the 2 sides of your buttocks, your mid-back, your shoulder blades. And the back of your head on the ground. So just take a moment to let your body settle and allow yourself to relax into the earth. Feeling the earth uphold you and support you, allowing yourself to be relaxed and open and receptive. So this is a time that we can let go of all the planning, all of the rehearsing, all of the trying to get it right, trying to be perfect, trying to have it all figured out. And you can just let go of all those held beliefs into the ground underneath you. Because these kind of breed subliminal fear and tension in your body. And when you lie down on the ground, you can allow yourself to open, connect to the earth, and you can allow yourself to let that go. So you're going to begin with your feet. And breathe into your big toes. feeling your big toes on either side. Breathing into all the pores of your big toes. So noticing what sensations are there. Feeling the mass of your big toe, the bottoms, the sides, the top, the hardness of your toenail. Feeling the bone of your toe. Notice any discomfort or maybe any achiness or sharp pains. So when you start to tune into your body in this way, you're going to feel all kinds of subtle or not so subtle sensations. You might notice this kind of anxious holding and gripping. So when you feel the tension, you're going to breathe into the tension and let that tension drain downwards into the earth. So you're going to release and relax and let the energy go down into the earth. And then breathe into your second toe. And you're just taking time to explore, seeing where there's tension, seeing where your body wants to release tension and let go. And notice that relaxation may be happening throughout your entire body. As you release in your feet, the relaxation happens throughout your whole body because the meridians of your feet run through your whole body. So when you let go of tension in your feet, you're relaxing your whole body. And come to your middle toe, feeling the tension in your middle toe. Letting that go. And then your fourth toe. And don't worry, each day is going to be different. Your body is going to be different each day. You may feel a little, you may feel a lot. And just like you can't rehearse your life, you can't control what's going to come up in your body, how you're going to feel. So just this process of being in your body and being open to what is arising is a practice of being open to the uncertainty of your life. You're open to what arises in your body. You're open to what arises in your life. And then your baby toe, feeling the tension in your baby toe, the holding on. And then releasing, relaxing, and letting that go. So now all 5 toes are releasing, relaxing, and letting go. And then you're going to come into the ball of your foot behind your toes, feeling the density, feeling the tension and the tightness here through the entire ball of your foot up to the top of your foot. And just notice that by bringing your awareness to it, that just like your life is constantly changing, things don't stay the same, the sensations in your body are constantly changing. And then there's a tension flowing down through your feet and into the earth, and you let go. And then coming to the arch of your foot, feeling the holding on, feeling all the tension in the arch of your foot. So just like we try to hold on and control things in our lives, there's that our body mirrors that tension. And when we let go of that holding on in our body, we're opening up to our lives. We're opening up to the groundless ground of our lives, to the uncertainty. We're saying that we're willing and open to show up to our life as it unfolds from moment to moment. Coming to the band of tension on the outside of your foot as it runs from your baby toe to your heel. Feeling the tension, feeling it release down. And then coming to the interior of your foot, from the top of your foot to the top of your ankle. Feeling the crisscrosses and bands of tension, allowing them to dissolve and release and let go. Your heel, releasing tension down into the earth. Your ankle bone on the inside, your ankle bone on the outside, feeling the tension in the bones. So now your whole foot is relaxing, releasing, and letting go. Coming into your shin bone and your shins. Feeling the tension and the tightness in the bones themselves, in the fascia and the muscles surrounding the bones and on the insides of the bones into the interior of your lower leg. Letting that tension dissolve and release and let go. Coming to your calf muscle at the back, feeling the density, feeling the tightness, feeling the holding on through this rather large muscle. All the way up to behind your knee, down to your Achilles tendon. Feeling the points of tension, maybe also the points that feel somewhat numb and difficult to connect with. And feeling that downward flow of energy through your whole lower leg, through your feet and into the earth. And then coming to your buttocks on either side, feel their connection to the earth. Notice any gripping in your buttocks. And allow your buttocks to let go, to soften, to connect more completely to the earth. Feel the tension, relax, release, let go. Become aware of the tension in the pelvic floor, the perineum, the anus, the genitals, feeling the tightness, feeling the holding on. Just allow yourself to be patient here, to go into the tension. And with patience, let that area melt and dissolve, release. Feeling tension in the sacrum. Allowing that to soften and rest into the earth more through the tailbone and the pubic bone. And then the pelvis itself, the pelvic bone structure itself, the pelvic cavity. See where there's tension and holding on, and allow yourself to release and let go. Feeling the tension at the sides of the hips. And then feeling that as you release your pelvis, pubic bone, tailbone, sacrum, there's a sense of spaciousness being created for your upper legs, your upper leg bones, the hips and the hip sockets. See if you can sense into that spaciousness. And then feel your upper legs, the upper leg bones, the quadricep muscles at the top, the hamstrings underneath. And just allow these muscles and bones to soften so that your whole upper left leg is relaxing and releasing and letting go, softening and melting into the ground. So now your whole lower body is releasing and relaxing. Just notice what it feels like to be connected with your lower body in this way, to be somatically open, to listen and respond to your body, to let go of this tension. And to be in relationship with your body in this way. And then coming to the base of your ribs and the base of your sternum, feel the connection to the ground there. And allow your rib cage to connect more deeply to the ground, feeling the tension on the insides of the ribs all the way around. And possibly any tension in the organs in around the lower ribs. Your liver sits to the bottom right of your rib cage. Your kidneys and your adrenals at the backs of your your lower ribs at the back. Your stomach and your intestines, just feeling all the internal organs here. Feeling the tension of the organs and allowing your organs to soften, release, and melt. Let your elbows be heavy on the ground, and then coming to your shoulder blades. Feeling your shoulder blades touch the ground at your upper back. And feeling the tension in the shoulder blades themselves, the bones of the shoulder blades, also just right in behind the shoulder blades, the fine muscles of the upper back. Just feeling into that layer of tension along the upper back. And allow that tension to melt like warm water over ice through the shoulder blades down into the earth. And then allow your awareness to travel up through the area of your upper torso, up through the upper lungs, up through the upper rib cage, across the collarbones, into your shoulders. Feeling the tightness, feeling the holding on through this part of your anatomy. And knowing that you don't need to hold on here anymore, feeling the support of the earth underneath you. Allow tension to dissolve, release, and let go. And feel that release all the way up through your neck. The front of your neck, the back of your neck. Feel the tension, the holding on through this part of your anatomy. Let that dissolve down through the ground too. So now you're coming to your elbows, feeling the heaviness of your elbows on the ground. Then return to your shoulders, the top of your arm bones. Feeling all the tension and the holding on in your shoulders, your arm bones. And allow that tension to slide down through your upper arms, through your elbows, and into the earth. And then coming to your hands, the palms of your hands, the backs of your hands, your forearms and your wrists, the base of your thumbs. Feeling all the tension, the pain. Let that tension slide down through your forearms, through your elbows and into the earth. And then coming to your head, let your head rest heavy on the ground. And feeling the tension in your eyebrows. And let that tension dissolve down through the layers, through the backs of your eyes, through the back of your head, into the earth. Feeling your eyes, and the tension in your eyes, your eyelids. Your forehead, the space between your eyebrows. And the tension in your mouth, around your lips. And the hollows of your cheeks. And your temples. Feeling your head as a feeling space, not a thinking space. And just let all the tension, all the remaining tension in your brain, the front of your brain, the middle of your brain, the back of your brain, the top of your brain, the base of your brain, let it all flow down into the earth. And breathing into your whole body. Noticing any remaining tension. And on your next breath out, allow that tension to release down into the earth. So over the next few breaths, just noticing any tension that presents itself anywhere in your body and letting that tension dissolve, release, and melt into the earth. And then let go of any projects, let go of any self-improvement, including letting go of tension, and just let yourself rest and relax and be in this state of somatic relaxation. Just let yourself be in your body. And then when you're ready, stay with this sensation in your body. Stay connected to your embodied experience. And you can start to make your way back up to a seated position. Okay, so this is the space and our time together for you to be able to speak about your experience with practice, whether that be your experience with practice today, or if you just want to be able to check in with your meditation practice in general as it's been unfolding over the last week or since the last time you checked in, then you can do that. So I open up the floor to you to be able to do that.
I have a question. I have a question.
Mm.
Is yoga like a form of moving meditation?
It can be. Can you say more?
Well, it's just when I do certain types of yoga, certain types, I find like the Qigong, the Qigong moving flow, I'm really paying attention to my breathing, the in and out. And that sort of feels like a form of moving meditation to me.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say ideally.
Oh, you say ideally it would feel like a form of moving meditation?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. If you're doing something like that, do you feel like you have to do the meditation on the floor?
Well, you don't have to do anything, right?
But is there, and should you do both? I mean, I'm using the word should, but I don't know how else I would say it.
I think you should check in with your own body and see what feels called for in the moment. You know, see what feels right for you at the time. You know, it maybe feels like, if it feels like it's needed, then yes, and if it feels like it's not needed, then no. It's maybe a complex question, because sometimes meditation can be something we can avoid too, right?
Exactly.
It can be, but yeah, if you're having a kind of, I think we know when we're doing that too.
If we're honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
I know that one of the things that I'm finding is I'm starting to question whether, because what I'm doing these days is somatic meditation first, yoga practice second in my mornings. And recently I'm being called, I was going to do this big, asking you guys, so what do you do? Do you do this first and then that, or what's your experience? And I'm interested, but the truth is that I figured today actually that if I'm asking the question, it's probably time for me to switch it up. To move my body, come to more wakefulness, and then to enter into somatic meditation, not as part of my coming awake, but being more fully awake in my daily practice. I think asking the question, then that's my answer.
It occurred to me just over this last weekend that we get a little regimented. We're like, okay, this is the way I'm doing it. And then step 1, step 2, step 3. And in actual fact, we are beings of variety. We always flourish when we're changing it up and there's new things happening. And I really love this, so I'm going to bring this in for a little while. And then, you know what? Now I'm going to let that slide for a little bit. And then I'm going to bring in this other thing that I really love. Or I'm going to update it or upgrade it. And for some reason, we've been taught to kind of beat up on ourselves if we don't do it the same way every day. This is what's good for you. You must do your smoothie, and you must on your yoga mat, and you must, and it's like, are we sure about this? Like, I actually find the variety, and that I think the meditation, coming to calm and coming to quiet, helps me to recognize how next am I going to change this. And that we're always, it's always developing. It's like it's always in this continuous developmental process of what our body needs. And on one day we might just need to just lay on our mat and do nothing. And another day we might need to be very active and do some very intense yoga. And can that not just be okay to have that variety?
I think there's truth to that, and that also I think what's coming up here too is that the seasons too, right? The season is the season of spring, and it's a more active season, and so you're feeling that shift to want to move more right now, probably, and that's normal. Yeah. I think from the perspective of meditation, to recognize as well that we live in a culture that in which we are constantly entertained. And our spiritual practice is no exception to this. We can constantly entertain ourselves in our spiritual practice. And our meditation practice, and I touched on this very briefly in the talk, very briefly, but it's okay to be bored. And part of coming to a practice every day that's the same is that we are going to encounter boredom. And that is something that we don't encounter in our day-to-day lives, because there are so many ways that we have to be able to escape boredom. I mean, we just do not have to encounter boredom. There are just so many opportunities to check out of boredom. You can't even stand in line anymore and be able to be bored. You can't. There's magazines, there's your cell phone, there's just, you can't even get bored doing your yoga practice anymore, because if the class is boring, you can click off it and do another class, right? There's just no opportunity for boredom. So while I agree with what you're saying, Susan, that our practice does, and we do need to listen to our body, and I don't think we should torture our bodies. And, like that can become a discipline, can become a form of violence. Absolutely. But that it's okay to be bored, and that's something that we can open to and be curious about, because it's not something that just, be curious about the next time you're bored and you pick.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I guess my comment was also under the perspective of what can create the kind of commitment that I know my body really needs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in terms of coming into a relationship with your body and listening to what your body needs. And I think that was the perspective that Paige was coming from as well. Mm-hmm. Because I do think we can get too attached to this is the way I'm doing it, this is the regime, and I think that's why in the lineage that we're following, that Reggie Ray has, in the Body Breeze and your breathing body, there's 20 different protocols for meditation, right? There's a reason for that. So there's not just one, and yet you are not encouraged to go willy-nilly through them. You are encouraged to stay with one for a length of time, and stay, and then move on to another. You're encouraged to commit yourself to one. It's not like a smorgasbord. Here we go. There is value in staying with the boredom, because the practice, it teaches you about life, right? It's like when you're with the boring person, right? You can, life is not always exciting. It's not. There are a lot of things we have to do in our lives that are boring. And you think about your day-to-day tasks. It's not all excitement all the time, is it? It's about, probably 10% excitement, 90% tasks that you have to get through. You have to do the dishes, you have to make dinner, you have to clean the house, these tasks that you have to go through. And then you get to do this creative thing that's exciting, right? So that's part of life. And it's like not trying to rush through all those boring things to get to that creative thing, that exciting thing. It's, that's your life too. It's about being with those boring things too. We're not trying to rush through all of that stuff. So that is where being bored in practice, how can we open and be with the fullness of the boring stuff too? Mm-hmm. It's a really valuable thing. Because if there can be openness there, man, your whole life can become exciting. And then there's a whole lot less, I think, kind of like grasping, thirsting, reaching, right, in your life for the next thing, the next hit, the next.
What do you mean the next hit, Alyssa?
Well, just so be curious about this. The next time there's some kind of discomfort, but we all do this, you pick up your cell phone, right? You open up whatever app and you start scrolling. And you scroll until you find the next thing that brings you that little bit of satisfaction. That's one example.
Yeah, Nick is brilliant at this. He starts cooking scrambled egg. He knows he has 45 seconds before he needs to stir it, so he goes and rushes into the other room and checks his email. Because it's boring looking at eggs before you have to start stirring it.
Yeah, and we all have our ways of doing that. We all do it. It's not, nobody's immune to it.
No.
So just watch that in your day, where you do it, where you check out, where you're bored, and where you start to entertain yourself. And just be curious about what it would be like to be with the boredom, because you know what, you're missing a lot. Where you go into rehearsing, because it goes back to the talk really, because it's, so where is it that you're checking out and going into rehearsing instead of being present with what's actually happening?
I think I have an example. I have gotten the habit of listening to audiobooks when I'm doing house cleaning, instead of like just sweeping the floor is boring, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking of a similar thing, Jenny, and very occasionally, not in any profound way, but recently, I've had just the idea of karma yoga on my mind, and of doing whatever it is I'm doing in service. Hannah, we talked about it a little bit in terms of self-care, in terms of just doing service. Whatever I'm doing it in service. And like if I can remember it every once in a while, I'll wash the dishes for me in service. And it brings a different level of meaning to real life, as opposed to the life I can make up in my head while I'm doing my actual life, because the stuff that's going on in there is not where I am and not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to show my A-reel here. This is a realization that I've been thinking about. It's not like I'm an actualized person.
No, and I think it speaks to something that, there's a tremendous amount of overwhelm that we're experiencing, right? And there's a tremendous, and it speaks to this, right? Because we live in a culture that's conditioning us to take in way more than we can actually take in, right? So, right, this is Jenny's example is a perfect example of being conditioned to, well, you're cleaning, you might as well do something else, because cleaning is not it's sort of a absent-minded activity, right? So you might as well listen to audiobooks. And then we wonder why our head is so full, we're so overwhelmed, we feel like and then we have no space when we come into relationship, when we come to sit down in meditation, why we're so completely overwhelmed, why we're so anxious, well, it's because there's just this constant inundation, right? Because we're constantly inundating and we're not just we're not fully present to our lives. And it circles right back to the talk, right? We're rehearsing our lives. We're not taking the leap and being present to our lives. And as I said, I touched on it in the talk, which was, being with the boredom when it's boring. I mean, I think a lot of people take their phones to the bathroom with them now, right? Like when you go to the bathroom, just go to the bathroom.
My goodness. That's a horrible thought, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the things that is said constantly. That's one of the worst ways that people ruin their phones, by dropping them in the
Spoil it. But it's really no different. It's really no different than, you know, I remember when I was a kid, you used to go in the bathroom and people had stacks and stacks of magazines and books and things in there. It's no different. It's just a different cultural time. I remember being horrified by it then too.
All kinds of things are going through my head, Melissa.
Me as a child?
No. What my husband would be saying.
Oh.
But I'm in there for half an hour. What am I supposed to do?
I know. Just do what you're doing. I don't know.
And you wouldn't want to miss a call.
Yeah, I don't know. Tim says to me, Melissa, you have to stop ripping off the Band-Aids. So, do what you have to do in the bathroom. I don't know. Be curious about that. Just be curious about the ways, maybe just be curious about boredom this week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you try to feel boredom, that's where we'll circle back to the talk.
I really love standing in line, standing in a queue, because I don't have anything to do but stand and wait. And I always get, oh, I'm so sorry you had to wait, really, really sorry. But actually, I really love it. And I'm talking about it now, because I don't do nothing any other part of the day. I'm always doing something, but actually having to wait and pause feels like a real pleasure.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to entertain you in those queues and encourage you to buy. And so
I've been working at finding things that are not doing nothing, but doing things that are really simple and yet very enjoyable. Like riding my bike somewhere, but then finding a spot where I can just lay on the grass and stare up at the underside of a tree, or stare up into the clouds. Because those kinds of things you used to do as a kid when you had these endless hours and no money.
Right, yeah.
And very, very sort of minimal transportation.
Exactly.
And what I've noticed too is anybody who's ever lost anyone or just been near somebody going through the end of life process, it's incredible for crystallizing, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to sit on the john and check my phone? Right? It's like,
yeah.
Or do I want to lay on my back and look at the clouds? And it's like, it makes you sort of think through those options of how busy do we want to be and what kind of busy, and keep that compartmentalized, and then make sure we try to leave room for that childlike staring into the oblivion, the daydreaming. The daydreaming is so important. Oh my God, that right side of the brain being able to wander. It just seems to me that if I only had one day left to live, that would be what I would choose to do. Not check my phone.
Yeah. Yeah, keeping the preciousness of this human life in the foreground is a really beautiful thing to do. Yeah, because I think that would change a lot of choices.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think that's a very good place to end.
Thank you, Melissa.
We'll see you on a forum, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.
Okay.
Namaste. Do you have 2 minutes, Melissa?
Sure.